but there's these mythical things that Jerry gets credited with, and I do think his fingerprints are all over it, but there's also a dynamic, and maybe this just speaks to his legacy and being the logo and whatnot, but he's almost singularly credited for things that maybe he simply just had his fingerprints on. Larry says that this Clay Kevin Love thing never even got off the ground. But you hear people all the time say, Jerry West stood on a table and fought every Warrior exec who wanted to trade Clay.
The trade was going to be done until Jerry West went over there and ripped the phone out of somebody's hand and hung up that phone and said, if you make this trade, I'm out of here. Hold on, Minnesota. What'd you say, Jerry? Sorry, Minnesota. We're going to have to call you back because Jerry West is on top of a table.
So does what Larry Riley just said jive with what Bob Myers said to Steiny and Evan just a few hours ago?
That is like this mythical story. And I always tell people the idea that was as close as people thought there was nothing going on in the NBA. That story dragged. And I always tell people we never got as far as people think. And they don't believe me or whatever. And I say, had that deal been close, we would have requested Kevin Love's medical because he had some medical stuff going on, and we never did. Sure, our job was to look at it, but Jerry, it never got to the point where we want to do it, and Jerry said, if we do it, I'm out of here. It never got to that level, but it's a fun story for people to tell, and people remember it in such a way, but he certainly, and Steve, we all love Clay. I mean, and people want to say that had Jerry not stepped in, that wasn't, Joe loved Clay, Steve, everybody, but he was a big fan, and that kind of took on a life of its own. But no, that one, I don't know if I can ever talk that one down.
But it's fair to say that he didn't want to do that.
No, he didn't want to do it. Yeah. No, he did not want to do it.
Yeah.
But to the point of like everybody else did, that part isn't true. But he definitely didn't want it.
The article that you keep referencing from Mark Stein.
Yeah.
What's the date on it?
It is June 19th, 2014.
June 19th, 2014.
Yes.
It was exactly a year later that the Warriors won the championship.
2015.
It was exactly a year later.
And I think that they kept Klay Thompson. I do believe that he also won a championship. And this article is fascinating from Mark Stein because it's about sources telling ESPN.com the Warriors, while they covet Love greatly, have been weighing internally whether they're prepared to give up two such assets in addition to David Lee for Love and Wolves swingman Kevin Martin. You remember K. Martin?
Of course.
The skinny swingman. You skip ahead a few graphs, and I believe this is the 6th paragraph, and tell me if this is familiar to you. Thompson's father, Michael, a former number 1 overall pick in the draft, and now a radio analyst on Lakers broadcasts, said Thursday on ESPN LA 7:10 a.m. that the Warriors and Wolves have been discussing a deal in which Golden State would receive Martin in addition to Love for Thompson, Lee, and a future first-round pick. 7:10 a.m., 2014. Is that you? That's
what my mind is going right now.
That's what I wanted to do the timeline.
Was that our show?
10 years ago, were you with Michael on, because you did 7:10 a.m., right?
No, Mike, it was our show.
On 7:10 a.m., right?
Yes, that was our show.
And I'm wondering if this is...
We were on from 10 to noon. That was our show.
Thompson and Willard, Willard and Thompson, what was
call him some stupid...
Mike and Mark?
Some program director name that allowed him to be like, if I want to fire anyone, I could just bring someone in without changing the name. Some stupid...
It's the midday shoot-around.
ESPN LA Now or some stupid, ridiculous name. Anyway... By the way, a little-known story, program director at that time of ESPN LA 710, you ready for his name? Not him.
Look.
Not him. His name was Mike Thompson.
Not Michael.
Not Michael Thompson. That was my partner.
Any relation?
My boss was Mike Thompson. Let you guess which one I liked better. Anyway.
The guy with the Mychael.
Just a little bit. But anyway, 10 years ago, let's see. Gosh, I've been here for over 5 now.
Yep.
And then there was the couple of years in San Diego. Yeah,
might have been.
Probably.
Yeah.
Wait, actually, okay.
June of 2014.
Oh my gosh.
Jude would have been
born. And
just born did.
Okay, so yes, that was us.
Okay.
And
I love how you walked your way through that. And you have to go based on how old your kids were.
I left 3 months later. 3 months later, I was gone.
Gone. to San Diego.
Well, there was the Fox Sports Radio.
Okay,
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough about that.
No,
so, yes, that was
the
on our
Warriors
show.
would get Kevin Martin and Kevin Love for Clay, David Lee, and a future first-round pick. And Jerry West stood on a table
Jerry West.
and shut that S down.
He closed the door. He
Totally.
took Bob Meyer's legs out. It was a right hook to Larry Riley, and then he ran over to the computer, and he hit the big no button, and heroically then bought everybody beers.
I love it. ESPN The Magazine's Chris Broussard reported, and Chris Broussard, ESPN The Magazine, remember that?
ESPN The Magazine.
He reported that the Nuggets were offering Kenneth Faried, Wilson Chandler, and a first-round pick for Love and Kevin Martin.
Okay.
But it remains unclear whether Love would be willing to sign a long-term deal with the Nuggets. This is 2014.
Unbelievable.
And there's actually a link to Ethan Sherwood Strauss. Break up the Splash Brothers, question mark? Our friend of the program.
Hopefully the
Ethan
article
Strauss.
said no.
I'd have to
Thank
look at
you
it.
for reading
Well,
my article.
And his, he did it in his typical esoteric and very eloquent fashion. So
Weave its way toward yes or no.
right, and turns out they didn't break them up, and they've
didn't.
now won 4 titles. And here we are 10 years later, almost to the day, and the same topic is, should they break up the Splash Brothers?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yep.
It's
When
crazy.
you remember how the whole Kevin Love saga that summer ended was he ended up getting traded to the Cavs.
To the
Join
Cavs.
forces with LeBron and Andrew
Right.
Wiggins
For
became
Andrew Wiggins.
a T-Wolf.
Yes, or for the pick that was Andrew Wiggins. Little did they know that all roads would lead to Golden State and rings over the next decade of all of our lives.
Yeah, good point, Grandy, because
Here
it
we
was
are.
Love for 6 in Minnesota, and then, man, he was in Cleveland a long time, and then a couple of years as a Heats.
As a Heat. Yeah.
And he's still not done.
No, I know. He's still a Heats, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Technically.
Yeah.
I don't know where he'll go.
Is
I
he
don't
a
know what his
free agent?
contract is.
He's a free agent.
I could look. He's
Yeah,
35.
I'm sure he is. He's a free agent every year.
Right.
At this point. By the way, FP is going to join us in 10 minutes. The Giants have defeated the Astros 5-3. And so they do take that series 2 games out of 3, and they're back to 1 game under 500. The Angels come to town this weekend after a day off. Tomorrow, the Giants will see if they can get at least back to 500, maybe even over, if they can pull some brooms out against an Angels team that has absolutely nobody on it.
I was happy and mad yesterday listening to Bob Melvin with you guys. Happy because I love Bob Melvin,
Yep.
and it was a great interview. Mad because I love Bob Melvin,
It
and I
happened
had
when you weren't
questions.
here,
Yeah.
We'll get him on again.
I caught the replay at 5:08
We'll get him on
after I got absolutely rat-a-tat-tatted. I went to the grocery store, got back in the car, and I got Bob Melvin on the way home. It was awesome.
Thank
yeah.
you for still listening, even though you were getting rat-a-tat-tatted.
Well, actually, I turned the radio back on after I did my little call in, and I heard the tail end. I'm like, man, do I sound like that? Dude, I'm angry, Jeff. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
I'm angry, Jeff.
That's awesome.
Oh my gosh, I'm looking up at NBC Sports Bay Area right now, and they just had a picture of Jerry West talking to Klay Thompson, and it's early Klay. And early, like, one of the crazy things about Steph Curry, and this isn't really true, but in our mind, you're like, Steph still looks like the baby he was. It's not true if you go back and look at, remember when the jersey, the
that
jersey,
picture that you have of Steph,
right,
you and
the
Steph.
jersey would just flop around when
Yes.
he ran, and part of that was style. Part of that was the fact that these guys were like 165 pounds soaking wet. But man, watching Jerry with young Klay, no goatee, no rings yet, none of that stuff, that is a very, very different look. And I want everybody to be prepared for that. I mean, as Jerry passes on, and we wish his family nothing but the best, and his legacy is unmatched, like, I really think there is a preparation that needs to go on for Warrior fans right now with what is potentially coming over the next 3 or 4 weeks, because there really could be some changes. And I know you think I'm talking about Klay, and partially I am, but I want to flash back now to one of the answers Larry gave us when I asked him, what are the characteristics Jerry West really prioritized when looking at a young player? And he said exactly what I thought he'd say. Did you hear he talked about being able to think your way through the entire game, being a complete player, that plays on both ends of the floor. I want to be very careful when I say this. I am not saying Jonathan Kuminga can't be that. I am saying he currently is not. Jonathan Kuminga is currently not the type of player that Jerry West would have, even though he didn't, stand on a table and fight for, because Jonathan's athleticism is incredible. His talent, fantastic. But what about those characteristics? I know he can play good defense. He doesn't always. It was only a year and a month ago that they pulled him out of a playoff series because he literally refused to rebound. And I think that does speak to someone's sort of competitive nature. I'm not saying he's not a competitor by any stretch, but is he maniacal about it? Does he fully understand and think his way through every single part of the basketball game? Maybe he will someday. He doesn't yet. He doesn't yet. The player that Larry Riley just described that Jerry West loved, Jonathan might be that someday. He is currently not.
Right.
My opinion.
And are those things that you can actually learn as you go, or is that something that's innate? Like I think about Kobe Bryant, and even, you're not going to compare Jonathan Kuminga to Kobe Bryant, certainly, but when Kobe came out, he immediately was aggressive and competitive, and those are the things that, Jerry West saw when he said that it was the greatest workout he'd ever seen, and those are characteristics that you're looking for, not necessarily the true greatness, but somebody who loves the game and wants to compete at that level, and that's not something that you always have seen from Jonathan Kuminga. And is that something that you can develop over time, or is that something that you have to have from the get-go?
I don't know, because some of the stuff that we're talking about, like, can you become a better defender? Absolutely.
Right.
Of course you can. Can you become a better rebounder? Absolutely. Of course you can. One thing that I think gets talked about behind the scenes when a team is about to draft a player a lot more than it does in the public space, because we don't see it. It's also not that interesting to talk about. There's no way for us to quantify it. But I remember having a conversation one time with Rob Ryan, NFL coach. I think he's doing something with the Raiders now. And I asked Rob, like, when you're assessing a player in the draft and you sit down to talk with that player pre-draft, what are you really looking for? And the very first thing he said, I'm looking for someone who loves football. Now, I'm not here to tell you, I hope you don't take from that I'm saying Jonathan Kuminga doesn't love basketball, or anyone for that matter. You've got to know that person. That's why these pre-draft conversations in all sports happen. But what I think execs and evaluators are looking for is someone who is maniacal in their attachment to the game. That sometimes shows itself as competitiveness. Sometimes it shows itself as someone who's the first to show up and the last to leave. Sometimes it shows up in someone who's like, I've become really good, but good's not good enough. I want to be great. It comes sometimes in the form of, I've won 5 of the last 6, and I'm upset that I didn't win 6. You know what I mean? Like that, and Jerry West was that.
No doubt.
Jerry West, what was the story that Evan shared? When he went 16 of 17 in a game and had a triple-double and 10 blocks. Quadruple-double. And they asked him about his performance after the game, and he was like, I hate the way I play defense.
Right.
That's
10 blocks.
That's the characteristic a coach goes, I feel comfortable with this guy.
Right. And you have very few players that have that. And you look at Steph Curry as a good example, a guy who has, and you mentioned it already, when he was a rookie, the uniform was falling off him, and he's gone in the weight room every single year, in season, off season, and he's gotten better, he's gotten stronger. Same thing with Klay Thompson. Draymond Green has worked hard to keep his body in as good a shape as he possibly can, as demanding as the game is on, Draymond at 6'5", playing center, playing small ball center for a team that's been a champion. And you look at other players on the Warriors, and maybe they don't have that same fight, that same desire to get better, and That's something that you have to want.
Well, and
I'm not saying that Jonathan doesn't have that.
No, I get it right. I'm with you. I think this is hard sometimes. It's hard for those of us out here in whatever, TV land or ticket land to assess this stuff. Like, we just got a text from 650. Clay is not exactly one of those Jerry West style thinkers. He's not? He isn't? I think Klay Thompson is an incredibly smart basketball player. You can see it. Are you thinking now? Is that what you're saying? Because I'm looking at his career, and I'm thinking somebody who sneaks all the way down to number 11 in the draft, who, when it comes to raw athletic ability in the NBA, Klay Thompson is not special. He does not have special NBA athletic ability. So how was he able to do what he did? Because he actually is a thinking man's basketball player. Like, his ability to learn the quick release and to move without the ball, that's what Steph and Klay, that's what made them great. It's what made them Splash Brothers. There's plenty more of this coming up. Bob Myers' full conversation.